Oh, again.
Zoom's recording. Camera 1, camera 2,
We are
camera
going
3.
to come back to the main topic.
All right.
Infantry. I was going to say hoorah, but that's a Marine thing.
That's all right.
Soviets did it too.
Oh,
Yeah, but that's
hoorah.
hoorah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's the cold open.
Hoorah! Welcome to another episode of HMG Podcast. We're up to episode 15. In this episode, we welcome back Dan.
Hello.
And Jacob.
Hello.
Also included.
Tyler, that's
and
me.
Gorchin. Welcome. Look, we stuffed it up a couple episodes ago, so it's fine.
It's fine.
We can
Did you
stumble over
forget
the
your
names.
name?
Because he introduced you two, so I'm like, I'm waiting for him to say my name.
Yeah.
Didn't want to
Gotcha.
say it. That's fine.
It was a setup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the show, gents.
Yep.
Good to have you.
Good to be back.
Thank God.
Dan, you've got a spicy subject for this one.
Yeah, so today we'll be looking at deep diving on infantry tactics. We'll leave the explanation for what that is for when we get to the segment, but let's just say it's going to help answer some of the questions of, but how do you actually use infantry?
Yeah. And we've gotten this a couple of times, haven't we, from different people?
Yep, we've had a couple of comments on our podcast, so thank you for listening and thank you for commenting because we do appreciate that. But before we get into that, it's time for sit rep.
Yes.
This is the new working title of our hobby update.
Yep.
Dan, what have you been sit repping recently?
So
That doesn't work.
So for my update for sit rep, I've been doing a lot of different things. Obviously balancing kids, work, and family, and things like that. Trying to maximize the time that I've got. So I've been doing up the HMS Vampire model. So that was my first true experience with photo etching, and coming off the back of the kits from Wasmex.
What's photo etching?
So photo etch is very small, thin brass sheet components, and so they'll be like in railings that you've then got to bend around the decks,
Right.
or in my case I had radio mast and radars and cranes to build out of photo etch. So it's wax pencils, super glue.
Yeah, so normally you see it on really high quality scale model kits, or as aftermarket add-ons to a specific kit.
Yeah.
Because when you try and mold something in plastic, you won't get the dimensions right because you have a minimum thickness for a lot of your molds, and so they will replace those parts with photo etch. Armored fighting vehicles, really common one is handrails.
Yes.
It's a really common thing for them to get replaced. If you don't have a photo etch kit, a lot of guys will use copper wire or something like that, and they'll replace and recraft those pieces themselves.
Interesting.
Yep.
That's cool.
So that was a bit of an experience because, of course, the ship is 1/700th scale, so it's only like 20 centimeters long.
Yeah.
And you've got to glue probably a 1.5 millimeter mast onto a flat surface.
How's your eyesight?
It turns out pretty good. But it was certainly strainful for those couple of days. But I've done up a diorama base for that, done some more painting on my lunar module, worked on some American Civil War guys, obviously ran the Dueling Aces event, which we'll talk about a little bit further on. So lots of things, but not actually working on the one that I want to get to, which is my Winter Bulgarians. So I've got 3 units complete, but I haven't actually jumped that next level in.
How long have you been working on those Bulgarians for?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, all right. Moving
You will
right
have to go
along.
backwards into our episodes to see where he started to first talk about it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
think it's
assuming
episode
maybe
1.
like maybe. Yeah.
Well, speaking of things that we've talked about in the first episode, because the next event coming up is mid-war period, I'm actually going to finally start painting my Australian paratroopers.
Yes.
Finally.
Oh my God, Gorchin's going to get a second army done before I'm done with my Bulgarians.
Probably a third, because there's a narrative event where I might need to spit up some Germans in
true.
October. So my airbrush is going to get an absolute workout in the next couple of months. So I'm finally getting them started, and of course finished. I've also had a couple of people ask me for to kind of condense all of the techniques I used on the Panther and kind of package them up so people can use them to upgrade their armored fighting vehicles.
Yeah, nice.
I've had a couple of people ask for that. I've got a built Tiger, which I can show off some of the kits, and then I've got, I think it's an M5 or an M3 Stuart for my Australians, which I will then go through some of the other stuff on it as well. So stay tuned if you guys want to upgrade your armored fighting vehicles from plastic kits to plastic enhanced is what they call them in the scale modeling community. But if you want to get those armor textures, if you really want to go that next level with the well beads and stuff, a lot of those techniques individually are not difficult, not time consuming. It's just when you do them all, does it become difficult. But if you just pick and select a couple of them, you'll get a massive sort of upgrade in your armored fighting vehicles. And
nice.
And even if you stick through your normal stuff where you do a base coat, you might dry brush another color, maybe edge height, you do a pin wash. If you do that with these sort of construction techniques, they'll actually get more out of the same dry brushing step. You'll get more out of the pin wash.
So is where can we find that when it comes out?
Western Tabletop YouTube channel.
Yeah,
Home of the HMG podcast.
It's like we planned that.
Jacob, hit us up, boy.
Oh man, what have I got? I mean, it's been months.
You need to talk into the mic,
We
buddy.
need you to hit.
Yeah, no, it's been months. Sorry, this is me going on the floor grabbing rule books and things of stuff that
Jesus
I've done
Christ.
since I last ran into you guys. So
Car Park Simulator?
Car Park Simulator is actually really
Park
good.
Simulator in World War II.
no, that's 7 Days to the Rhine River.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spaceship car park simulator?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, we've got this whole collection of books. So yeah, Team Yankee gave it a go last weekend. I think that's when we had the big events at RHG, and that was with
15th of August? Give it something like that?
something like that.
Yeah, it was last week.
Yep. That was with Harry Leith. He is the owner of Fog of War, which is
fantastic.
the biggest
Yeah.
Team Yankee Flames of War YouTube channel out there. He pretty much reviews every single kit that comes out. Sometimes does the Zvezda stuff and some Plastic Soldier reviews as well.
Yeah, cool.
My opinions of Car Park Simulator.
You should use the real name, Team Yankee.
No, but it has this terrible reputation that this is a bad game, that people line up their tanks into a small column and it just doesn't look realistic.
To be fair, from the photos I've seen, that looks pretty accurate.
That is the wrong way to play the game, and it is not the tactical way to play the game.
Oh, is it kind of like the rookie trap?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
right,
is.
okay,
It is.
okay.
There
Interesting.
are conditions where it makes sense,
Yeah.
but there's lots of places where it doesn't. So I deployed that way because I was thinking that was the right thing to do.
Sure,
That's
yeah.
where you get these bonus bubbles and whatever else. Does not work for majority of the
Right.
situations
I
that
like
you
that.
need to use
That's
it.
awesome.
Is
and
there
even
kind of like is there a morale effect? So if you're
there's a
near...
morale effect, but that really doesn't come into it too much.
Right,
It's
okay.
really about protecting your units.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a silly way to play it, and it's a bad connotation that people have about this set.
Right, okay.
And the you go, I go of this, I mean, it's different to 7 days and whatever else, but I'm going to say this has legs, worth trying.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Did the Team Yankee stuff. What else have we been into? Quite a number of us have been doing Necro. We kind of jumped in when Hive War came out.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only played once or twice with Nick, but yeah, I'm planning to get more and more games into this.
It's good fun.
So what else have we got here today? Did a lot of Iron Cross.
So Iron Cross, same developers as 7 Days to the Rhine River,
So Great
right?
Escape Games,
Yep.
same devs as 7 Days. It's pretty much the same rule set. You just don't have all the helicopters and whatever
Yeah, you
special
just back
missiles
in
and
it.
whatever else.
Heat armor and all that jazz.
These rule sets, the real
Or whatever
interesting,
the armor's called. You know what I mean? Don't look at me like that.
the interesting mechanic, the thing that's different about this and everything else is basically everything on the battlefield has the ambush rule that it would
Ambush,
have in bolt action,
Yeah, right.
and you have to decide if you're going to commit to use those actions to defend or not, and whatever else.
Yeah.
Other than that, bolt action, I mean, I really plan to get into this dueling aces that we were going to talk about. Life stuff got in the way, but I'm building a new force which is all focused around Berlin defenders.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And then, just this week, have a weird collection of Dust 1947.
I am keen as a bean to try these rolls.
And I got Star Wars Armada as well. So basically, just sold some miniatures I'm not using.
Yeah.
Went for some different stuff. The Dust stuff, I didn't actually buy for the Dust rule set. It's really, I wanted to try Conflict 47, which is bolt action Weird War.
Yeah.
But I ran into a deal that had all the rule books, all the minis, everything for dirt cheap. So I just went for it because getting a hold of the official conflict stuff is so damn hard.
Really?
And it's
Yep.
really expensive.
Yeah.
So this gave me like 9 mechs, all kinds of weird war infantry. So like mix that with your bolt action stuff. I've got everything I'm going to need for it.
Nice.
And then, some of the guys are getting into Star Wars, so I figured I'd try as well.
The Star
Nice.
Wars one is funny considering that, most of us have had Star Wars in our collections at some point, give or take. But I put up on our Discord channel a massive X-Wing game that I was playing one day because I was like, I'm home, I'm sick or whatever. I can't remember the reason. It's like, but I set this game. Now I used everything I had, and it took 4 days to finish the game. So just think about that.
Those photos look so interesting, though.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's a reason why a big part of the community actually joined in by the looks of it. Like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
happened and everyone was like, oh, it's Star Wars.
Yeah.
So there's like 3 of us that have similar size collections that we were like, we could probably get all of Perth playing. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, we need to go bigger. What's bigger? Armada. Armada is bigger. And then all of a sudden there's like 4 people in the group now that have bought Armada armies like ready to go. And I was just like, so no one's playing X-Wing then.
We'll do both, mate.
Yeah.
So how you doing, Tyler? What's new?
Man, yeah, I had Necromunda that I've
Yep.
been working on. My Chaos guys. We got the first game in of the tournament.
Campaign.
I did it
was-
last time.
No, you said league last time like 15 times.
Which was the most impressive thing I've ever seen in gaming, because you and Nick came to the event dressed in suits and ties.
Oh yeah, we had to. We
They
both
did
kind of
look
sat
sharp.
down.
Yeah.
Beautiful, like before and after. You see us like shaking hands, and then afterwards we're both there, like, shirts are like undone, just buttons down, jackets are off. That was. I had a bunch of fun with the rule set. I mean, I can see how it could get real janky real fast.
Yeah.
Which is why we were both just kind of like shake hands, be gentlemen about it.
Well, that's sort of where like that came from.
Yeah.
One of the things I always said, I was like, look, this is a game that you can cheese pretty quickly,
Yeah.
and with the intent to cheese it, you'll cheese it,
Yeah.
and you'll find lots of loopholes and stuff. So just kind of like that. I just kind of kept saying.
Gentleman's honor, eh?
Yeah.
I just kept saying
That's-
it's like you have to play the game gentlemanly. You gotta like give and take. And,
Taking that
Yeah.
to the extreme.
I don't know how gentlemanly an enforcer force with 2 of those concussion grenade launcher
Jesus,
things are.
they are
They fire
strong
twice a
weapons.
turn.
Yeah.
no, they only fire twice because he gave them the skill that allows them to do that.
Yeah, well,
Well,
he
Nick
forgot.
shoots them twice.
For the
Oh.
entire game, he forgot.
Oh, really?
It was only at the end, and I was like, that would have changed the entire outcome.
Yeah.
Because in the end, I won, but literally, last turn 10, both of our sides have no one on the board. We both bottled with the last guy.
What a crazy game. You played at 10 turns.
Yeah.
So the common thing that happens as a Necromunda is that both gangs will typically start bottling or giving up at about the same time. But unless you voluntarily bottle, that doesn't actually mean you lose. There's only some specific scenarios where bottling out the gang is you losing, because it's gang warfare. You're not doing total war.
Yeah,
It's 2 gangs bumping into each other or as it's
Skirmish.
just called, having a bump.
Yep.
And they'll change some shots. Some guys will get injured, and then they'll kind of go, "Oh, we've kind of done what we needed to do, and we'll leave."
Cut and run.
Yeah. And so it's not that kind of Warhammer style or bolt action. You play the last man.
Desperation.
Just
There is only war.
yeah, and because you guys have permanent injuries and stuff, you obviously don't always want to play to that extreme.
Yeah.
Anyway. So you will typically see that gangs will bottle out before the mission is complete, and so that's why, like, the real difference between guys who are really successful in campaigns and guys who are less successful is whether they play
Choosing
the
that
objective.
moment. Yeah.
Because when I first started playing, I was forcing my opponent to bottle as soon as I can. I'd find the weak guys and just kill them, and then the game would end in a draw, and I'm like, oh, why is it a draw? You bottled, and it's like, oh, you didn't play any of the objectives. I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah. We had the same thing. Like, I had to defend 3 points, and if I held at least 1, I would win.
Yeah.
And so I made the stupid mistake of trying to hold 2 and kind of hold 1, just like and it wrecked me. Like, I should have just from turn 1 just been like, I am sitting here, come get me, mother trucker.
Yeah.
But no, I was like, I'm gonna get my melee guys in. It's gonna be great. Anyway, in regards to painting those guys.
Oh yeah, the cultists, right?
Yeah. They're awesome, and just putting more and more partisans together.
You bought the War Games Atlantic.
Yeah.
You bought one box, and then you got a whole bunch of metal ones.
I got some of the pulp figures,
Pulp
miniatures.
Pulp
Yeah,
miniatures,
yeah,
I think.
that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I got some of those guys, and I also got the boxes offered by Warlord as
Yeah.
well. So I've
Yeah.
got a support team from them and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
How did you find the Atlantic kit?
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get 32 guys. You
Oh.
cannot complain it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like $50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I paid shipping for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sat there and I'm like, this feels gross.
I feel like you stole that.
Yeah, I went all the way over to them. No, it's basically just a Warlord kit.
Perfect.
Like they
Same
interchange
quality, yeah.
really well. And
Good.
yeah, I mean, you don't have probably as many poses as maybe you could
Yeah.
get from a Warlord kit, but
Yeah.
you chuck a couple heads in
Yeah.
there.
But
and
still, what is
kind
it
of
like?
looks
32
different
guys, $50.
It's,
Yeah.
it's
Oh, you
not
can't
just guys
complain.
as well too. You get some girls in there too, right?
I apologize.
No.
Oh, okay.
I take it back.
Oh,
No,
maybe.
no, I think in
I
the
think only the metal ones that you
The
would
Warlord
got.
has
the
them.
Warlord ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because I made a squad of veteran guerrillas
Yeah.
out of the Atlantic Games kit, and then I made a whole squad of SMG toting women, which is great because
Perfect.
that's how I roll.
Yep.
Um,
Well, those are
Yeah.
all the famous photos of French resistance.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Vive la Resistance, all that.
Cool.
Yeah, but apart from that, I've just been playing so many video games.
That's not a bad thing. But you guys all did play at a bolt action event. Well,
Yeah.
that
Yes.
Dan hosted,
Yeah,
so let's,
yeah.
let's hear
Moving
about
into
that.
our fire maneuver section
Fire
with
maneuver.
dueling aces, Mr.
Dueling
Tio,
aces.
if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, so this is something that was meant to happen for a long time before it actually happened. We actually had so even before the original date we had, which was the 10th of July, and then the venue flooded, and so we had to shift it.
Along with most of Perth.
Along with,
Far out.
It
so
was
much
a-
of Perth.
it was a rainy day. Our local game store in Rockingham also flooded that day
Yep.
and had serious implications.
My workplace flooded.
Your workplace
nearly
flooded.
my car engine.
Yeah,
Yeah, my
several
mum's place
places.
flooded.
Yeah. So either way, there was a lot of rain. But so despite having to shift it, and some of the challenges that I had leading into the event, and trying to get the dates lined up to where I could actually make it and support it, but make sure the players pack was done right, the missions were balanced, and all that sort of stuff. It was probably an event 9 months in the making, to be honest, from the last one. And so we held it on the 1st of August, which was only a couple of weeks ago now. It feels like way longer than that, but it's only a couple of weeks. And it was, the return of our doubles format. But listeners of our podcast will know that I don't just
Return formats.
return to formats without changing them and
Oh
keeping
my
it fresh and variety and all that fun stuff. So it was 3 completely new missions that no one had played before, and they all had to use a selector. Now, for
custom
those
selectors,
custom selectors. So for those that have watched our
Christmas
Christmas
special.
episode,
Yeah.
one of the missions we premiered on that episode, as well as what your army could look like, they actually still morphed quite a bit to what the end
they did.
result
Oh,
did
yeah.
look
Yeah,
like. But anyway,
Notably that you put the 2 objectives, rather than being like 36 inches apart, you put them like 6
12
or maybe 12 inches
it's
apart.
like they were close. But what that did was force everyone to engage on that
Yeah.
particular mission. So instead of sitting back and risking the defensive play where you just end up with a draw, you had to risk it for the biscuit and man up in the center.
So much risking biscuits.
So
there was a lot of risking, very few biscuits.
Well, no, I mean, we got a lot of biscuits.
Right at the end.
Yeah.
Right at the end.
yeah. So we ended up having, we had 6 teams come, so 12 players overall, because when we shifted date, we did lose a couple of people overall. We were originally slanted to have 20 players
really?
across 10 teams. Yeah, so it was going to be,
Pretty standard size.
standard sized tournament. But there was no scoring, and I simply rotated people like I did with the last doubles setups.
Yep.
You simply rotate up one table or down one table, depending on whether you were Axis and Allies.
Yep.
And we had enough tables set up so that you would never meet the same rotation, the same table, the same players.
Yeah.
Makes matchmaking really simple when you do that.
Yeah.
Just saying. Everyone had a really good time.
It was a good day.
With there was a couple of very, very minor exceptions. Like one of them was one of the table layouts where it was a little bit open in the center, so it was quite vulnerable for the mission that they just played.
Which one was that one?
It was
Because we had 4
Trying to think.
seasons.
Yeah, we did have 4 seasons. Yeah, yeah, we literally had summer, winter, autumn, and spring.
Yeah.
Across the 4 tables. So the one of the tables had. It was the one with the river crossing,
Right. Yeah.
and it was just it was a little bit open towards the river, and so like if you couldn't get across it, you got stuck in it.
Yeah.
Tyler's like,
Sorry. Flashbacks.
but yeah, so the
It wasn't a real war, man.
That's my feeling.
that is a successful event. But the other thing that I did as well is that your player 1 and your player 2 on the teams, you both had different objectives throughout every mission. So you couldn't simply just gang up and go one direction. You actually had to think about, what do I need to do to haul my weight on this team to achieve my objectives?
Yeah.
Or do I simply forego my objectives, which means you're obviously foregoing points, and then go straight into trying to assist my partner? It led to some very interesting conversations on the day when everyone was actually rolling dice and trying to figure it out. And one of the missions, right, I forget the name of it, but player 2 deploys on the short edge, and they only get points by running off the opposite short edge. Like that's
72 inches of movement, baby.
Inch move, right, to get
Jesus
off in order to get any points. And everyone was like, wait, so I don't have to engage, I can just run off the board. And I went, absolutely, yep. In order for you to get points, you run off the board. And everyone's gone, every single player on every single team that was
Just
player
did a
2
run.
was like, I'm just going to run off the board. And I'm going to get like, and I added, I was like, I'm going to get like 17 points. There's no way that they can lose. And I'm like, in my head, I'm going, and your opponent's thinking exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So what happens is only those people that were truly stoic and didn't give in to bloodlust made it to the other side of the board.
Yeah.
And it was like, because player 1, I mean, we'll talk a bit more about our experience, but with that, like player 1 as well, I had to get from one side,
One corner to
corner to
another.
the other corner.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you're like, man, easy. There's a road right there. Let's just go.
And then, of course, the other player wants trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'll just play stuff here, so he can't do that. And then oh
And-
my
and
God.
my-
My
about-
friend Michael, who you've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
on some of the 2v2s and stuff I've
He's
recorded
a
on
great
TTS.
player.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
good. But it was just, I love how he said it. He goes, yeah, that mission should just be renamed the Death Vortex Generator. Because you ended up just with like one team moving like clockwise around the table, the other one counterclockwise, and just everybody shooting at each other just as they spiraled.
As the TO, it was extremely thrilling to walk across the boards at the tables and just watch now everyone enjoys having a good scrap in the middle because it all feels fair, that you're not being cheated out of anything. It's basically whoever rolls good dice feels good at the end. It is not that simple in how that went, but as the TO, when I walked around for that particular mission, everyone was having fun, everyone was enjoying themselves, and everyone was really frustrated that the opposition did exactly what they're doing.
I think the part that I felt really bad for is on that mission, the opponent player 2 had a transport just like zooming all the way across the board. I had one 6-man squad with a BAR of just regulars, just walked out in front of the truck, got a pin on it, and then he was like, I'm going to advance this truck. Goes down.
No,
He's like, I'm gonna get the offset out of the truck, so give it the morale bubble. Goes down. And then he's like, I'm gonna move the truck. Goes down.
Oh dear.
There was
that
like
one
4
pin.
dice in there. If
Yeah.
they'd gotten that, they would have absolutely steamrolled us.
Yeah. And then it was just funny because it's like one 6-man rifleman squad forming a
A
roadblock.
unit you'd normally think is quite useless.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
We'll get into
we will
later.
get into that. But
My 3 traffies in those first 2 games,
Yeah.
like I might as well
my
just have not aboard
God.
them.
which is
Playing by
hilarious.
myself.
which is hilarious because Gorchin and I had, a little while before we actually played a test game, and his chaffies absolutely wrecked the armor
Yep.
that I brought. Like now, to be fair, I made some tactical decisions that could be questionable.
Panzer III soft armor turns out paper thin.
Yeah. Especially when you continually show the rear of the Panzer.
Yep.
So all 3, but yeah, I think what are the other experiences out of that event that you guys enjoyed? Because obviously you all played. Well, sorry.
I didn't attend, but I did play a
The
test game
practice.
against Mike.
Yeah.
And that it was specifically that mission that you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
gee, that was fun.
The
Like,
Death
it
Vortex
just-
Generator.
It just pushed everything into the middle for it to go.
Yeah.
And there was some great moments. Like, I bring out an SMG troop with a flamer onto one of Mike's flanks, and then the flamer just runs out of ammo. And I'm like, all right, well, I got 14 shots of SMGs here. Everything misses.
Ow.
there was that.
On like twos or something. Like
Yeah.
it's just ridiculous.
You charging that Volks Grenadier squad? Oh man.
That inexperienced Volks and Grenadier squad with my veterans,
Yeah.
with Tough Fighter.
Yeah. God. And you couldn't
Let me know how that goes.
even you couldn't even kill like 2.
It was so sad.
So satisfying.
Were
Yeah.
you even outnumbered or what?
No, he had 8 guys and he charged like 3.
Yeah, and I
8
just
guys, 8 veterans of
whiffed.
tough fighters.
Tyler, in that
Whiffed.
move, Tyler epitomized the snatching defeat from the claws of victory.
Yeah,
Are
we
we
were sitting
throwing
down.
those dice in the river or what? Like,
I was sitting there and we're like, we could just shoot. We could probably kill like maybe 1 or 2, you know, whatever. And it's like, nah, charge. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Mistake.
And that's what happens when you get me as a tournament partner.
Yeah.
I was having a great time. That Volks Grenadier squad almost won the game for our opponents
He
too.
was down to 1 guy.
Do you remember who you were versing?
That was Mike.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
okay,
Mike.
and
okay,
Justin.
yeah.
Michael Justin. It was
Yeah, Mike and
because
Justin Lane. Yep.
the one Volks Grenadier managed to survive. So I got rid of 2 others with a bit of
2 other
SMG
squads,
fire.
yeah.
But then it's small team, all that jazz, and he's in cover, yada yada yada. And he's inexperienced. He's got a couple pins on him, and he just has to sprint across
Yeah.
to the
To get into
deployment
like a
zone.
little soft cap zone.
And so he's like, I run towards there. And I'm like, yeah, cool. You know, you act all cool. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
your heart's not hammering out of your chest. Boom. Fails it. Just bottles himself right there. Oh, wrong game. But yeah, the dice that day were against
Yep.
everyone. I don't think anyone was like, yep, today is my day.
I was.
In mission 3, turn 1, with my 3 chaffies firing, I killed more points in that turn than I did the other 2 missions combined. And then that mission 3, my 3 chaffies was just, I was literally
Was it worth it?
100%.
Oh, yeah. That one
100%.
game.
Yeah. Oh, just absolutely bulldozing the whole table. I was like, I'm going to blow that up. Dead. I'm going to blow that up. Dead. There's a transport full of infantry. Dead.
It was so good.
But-
Jackson.
An apology would be probably a good place to start.
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to recall the incident.
Just the whole game, because you know.
So what we figured out in mission 3. So what you were saying about which objectives you go for.
Yes.
The conversation that Tyler and I had before the day was that in the games when there was 3 objectives, all Tyler needed to do was hold one. I needed to hold one, and then we would share the responsibility of securing those 2.
Yes.
So we just give up the 3rd objective, and then but the last mission. Player 2's objective was to score kill points.
Yes.
Player 1 objective was to capture the 2 center points. You
Yes.
had 1 to defend and 1 to attack, and it was flipped for the sides. And so what we decided, and you had like this kind of like shared deployment zone in the middle where both of you could deploy.
Yes.
What
I
we
did,
said
I did do that, yes.
for the benefit of our viewers. What we decided was that what we needed to do was to kill their player 2 as soon as possible. Just because the best way to damage control is to stop them from earning victory points. And so what me and Tyler did, we literally just deployed middle and just death balled at Jackson.
Oh gosh.
2 players just death balled right at Jackson.
That explains it, because I remember coming around and Jackson was like, oh, feeling a bit of pressure, and then coming around and Jackson's like, I've got like 2 units left, and I'm going, whoa.
To be fair,
He's
like
noble.
he was doing really well
Yeah,
for a little
yeah.
while. Like
Yeah,
his noble hit twice on me, and
Yeah.
Wow.
just wiped a squad and just was doing really well. His flamethrower came out to play for a little bit.
Yeah.
It was going all his way. Gorchin was just smacking shit around with his chaffies.
Because there was one SDK of Zed,
Yeah,
the armored car with the heavy anti-tank gun
Yep.
open, that was like dominating a sight line across the center of the field.
Yep.
I managed to pop it turn 2, and
Yeah.
I was like, what other anti-tank do you have? And he's like,
Oh.
Panzerfaust. And in turn 1, I popped
Yeah.
Jackson's tank at extremely long range
Yes.
with a sidearm shot. And he was like, Panzerfaust. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. I can move 9 inches a turn. I just won't get near the Panzerfaust. And of course, all the Panzerfausts were coming from not Jackson's direction. And I was like, straight at Jackson.
I mean, that guy, once again, dice, no good. He
No,
tried to,
no.
he had like 3 trucks or something.
Oh, yes.
None of them moved forward ever.
Oh, no,
They
he
all
did
moved back.
the original engineers. But out of like 4 order tests for his transports, he only had 1.
no.
Oh, that's
yeah,
rough.
it was
That's
rough. They all went backwards.
But even Jackson, despite having that setback, I think, commented that he
Absolute
still
trooper.
had fun. And,
Yeah.
and look, the thing is, like, doubles always goes this way,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
so the way that the doubles are set up is it's meant to be fun, but sometimes in some missions, and especially with my missions, things aren't always going to go your way.
No.
The first mission, it was a bit of a doozy for everyone as well. They weren't quite ready for that one. But
Yeah, no, that's the one that you're like, oh yeah, the open board. As soon as you said which one it was, I
Yes.
was like triggered.
yes,
That
yeah.
was a rough mission.
Yeah. But yeah, and the scores from a tournament side and the event side of like tallying things up, we actually had very, very close scores. So there wasn't a lot that was separating. I was able to, with the sponsorship of things, I was able to leverage and get a little bit of prize support for everybody.
Yeah, right.
I'm just going to continue.
Yeah.
Go for
I
it.
was doing that. Yeah, so it was really good. So one of the things I wanted to, while Tyler's dancing around there, we just got to turn the lights
It's
back
motion
on.
censored.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
We're obviously not animated enough when we're doing things.
I'm back.
Or he's lost his mind.
Just have a
Viewers,
psychotic
you
break
decide.
halfway through.
But one of the other
Mission
things,
3.
one of the other things I wanted to talk about was, you know, and off the back of Dueling Aces is like things that are distractions within, you know, getting hobby progress done. Or so like me, for example, no sooner has the first event finished before I'm thinking about the next one.
Yep.
So like people will come and ask me what's going on for this mission and how it works, and I'm basically taking notes for how I'm going to apply that in the future missions or in future setups. So I won't always do custom missions, but judging how things go so far, it's probably still going to be 60% of your mission pack is going to be something a little different.
To be fair, I think it was like 3 or 4 days after we finished Dueling Aces, and I saw on the group chat they were like, "Hey Dan, when's the next one?" People really, really want it, which is awesome. I think anyway.
Yeah. So, but I mean, like, do you guys have other, you know, things that, so you're trying to play an event, you're trying to get stuff through, and like, are there things that distract you whilst you're playing, or can you manage your focus?
Oh, you mean like actual on
I
the
actually
day
meant on the
distraction?
day. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we kind of talked about it in the episode with Jackson.
Yeah.
Oh, we won't recover then if you've done it.
No, indirectly.
Yeah, it was-
So my main thing is like I'm always kind of thinking about what I'm going to do next. And ironically, I kind of end up just ignoring the decision my opponent actually made because I've just like cataloged all this stuff. The other, when it comes to other distractions, I usually find is that I'm kind of caught between, because when you're at an event, that's your chance to bump into like the greater community as all the people you don't normally play with.
Yeah.
And so I'm caught in this point where as I'm walking from one table to another between rounds, I want to chat to somebody who's made it all the way, you know, who's driven 400 kilometers to be there. And I'm like, oh, hey, like, you know, Gilly, great for you to come up from Albany for this event. I want to chat to you and catch up with you. And it's like, but I have 60 seconds to get to my next table because otherwise I'm affecting my opponent.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you know, if there's some other opponents that you bump into semi-regularly, they've got new units who you haven't seen or they haven't posted online, or they have and you want to see them in the flesh. You're like, oh, I really like what you did with that Panzer IV. That MG team looks awesome.
And you're like, oh, how'd you do that?
Yeah. So for me, most of the distractions have been, I guess, just like pure hobby stuff. And it's just like there needs to be I don't like necessarily want a longer lunch break because most of the time you just kind of want to like stop, eat, get in
An
next
hour
game.
was way too
An hour did feel long.
Get it done. And then, but at the same time, you kind of like, where's the scheduled beer session with all of the bolt action players?
So what you're saying is at my events, you now want them to be alcohol.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there
And
was
you think that would-
alcohol at the Dueling Aces event.
I was just about to say, so we actually, so our event, we partnered up with Objective Secured to run Charity Hammer. But because we had to postpone it, we actually then partnered up with OBSEC's other event that was already running at the time, which was Winter Assault.
Yeah.
And so we actually had probably 80 people, I think,
Yeah.
in across both halls.
And see, I loved it. I'm an atmosphere
it was
guy.
awesome.
I was like, all of these dice being thrown, all of these people yelling.
And-
that dude shit-faced in a onesie, let's go.
And the charity hammer stuff as well. Like you could pay for rerolls and
You
You could
like,
pay to tie people up.
you could
that dude got duct taped.
Dude's playing the game with one arm. I don't know how I
Yeah.
did. That one guy got paid $20 to remove another guy, and like not his table he was playing against, like one of his friends. He's like, hey, $20. I'll give you $20 if you remove all the terrain from his side of the table.
And they did.
Yeah, and they did.
$20 to charity.
Yeah,
Yes, $20 to charity.
Yeah,
It all went to
was,
charity.
It was all fun and games.
But it opened up that creative license to have a bit of fun with it.
I think someone ended up $168 in rerolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's $1 a reroll.
Yep.
Gee.
Yeah.
I don't think they won though.
Can't
It
reroll a
doesn't
reroll.
sound like they were.
Yes. But
Distractions?
sorry. Yes. Speaking of, yeah, no.
Tyler,
like-
get him out of the event.
Yeah, no. Barring like personal issues and stuff, it really does come down to like talking to the people.
Yeah.
Like all the time, especially a non-competitive scene. I guess like that we have here in Bolt. In Perth, and you're like, oh, hey man, this is so good. I haven't seen you since the last tournament. What's been going on? What have you been painting? Oh my god, that's amazing. And you get stuck in this kind of loop, and then you're like, oh, I gotta go, man. I'll talk to you later. And it would be cool actually if there was like, all right, guys, dice down. Let's head to the bar. Like, it would be cool, and then be like, man, tell me more about you. Tell me more about.
This is your time for your scheduled mandatory state-sponsored beer.
So more distractions.
So so in the section where I've talked about
distraction.
Yes.
and therefore it's not a distraction, right? Because it's scheduled, it's a thing. So what you're actually saying is within the event, potentially maybe just before or just after lunch, we want a space where we can just establish wargaming bromances.
Yes.
Over beers.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
I genuinely think I could probably work that in.
because it kind of unofficially happened a little bit over at the McDonald's across the road.
Yeah.
Like, we all just kind of sat there and we were talking about stuff.
Well,
it
and
was
we
nice
had
to just chat.
and we had that. I can't remember the gentleman's name who came. Might have been Jacob, who was interested. And so Jacob was. I was chatting with him, and then I was like, "Oh right, well they're just about to go to lunch," and I was like, "I tell you what, Jacob, follow those guys." And I essentially tried to set it up so that he would have someone else to talk to. So he loved the fact that he was able to come down and watch so many variety of armies and variety of how people were playing. But actually still see that's played out, on the day. So no, it was good to have someone down to spectate who genuinely was like, no, bolt actions is kind of where I want to go, as opposed to 40k, which is, and in fairness to them, it is obviously a big war game system as well.
I mean, before I was going to call out Jackson and say, suck it, because we won and he challenged me.
Wow.
But at the same time...
Aren't you happy that I forced you to be magnanimous?
Yes. But like at the same time, the kind of reason I hesitated as well is because I know for a fact that he bought a very themed army.
Yes.
Him and Brad
Yes.
had awesome themes going. Like his was like a last line of defense kind of thing, which was really cool. So Jackson still want to have a proper tussle with your buddy.
I honestly expect you to go, but still suck it.
But still suck it. But distraction wise,
It's gonna be great when like Jackson does have a tussle with you and spanks you like a little child.
Are we
you have
still
so
talking
little
bolt
faith
here?
in it. You have so little faith.
Distractions.
He's going to come back with a vengeance. I've been there. Trust me.
No, I'm sure he will. He knows how it works now. I've been
It's
analysed.
just recon, man.
Prepare to get disassembled.
But distraction wise, it'd be nice if we had scheduled distraction time.
Okay, no, that's something
Just in
that I
case
can
we want to
probably.
paint ourselves.
Maybe we need to
into a
move
box.
from. So what do they do? They do Beer Hammer for 40k.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking.
What's that bar that they go to?
Bugman's.
Tavern.
Well, there's that one. But I was thinking also over in Warhammer, they have Bugman's bar that's right next door.
Yeah,
Right,
right.
okay.
That's
they do
cool.
things with. Yeah.
But like they do go down to Qdale, and it's like a little hobby bar kind of thing.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Qdale
Yeah,
actually sells
Yeah.
Warhammer.
Yeah,
They do.
so
Like
we're
a
going to do
little-
beer action.
Working title.
What's great about that is you could
It's
lull.
still
You could.
BA.
What's great about that is you could lull in a false sense of security for a whole group of people that don't actually know what they're turning up for, and then you just go,
Perfect.
here's your dice, here's your army, there's your table, and they're all going,
This is
I
amazing.
thought this was something different. It's like, it's too late. There's people behind you.
Here's your
Move.
beer.
It's behind enemy lines.
Yeah.
One guy gets a
Oh.
tape measure, the other guy gets an order dice back.
Oh,
Off you
that'd
go.
be. I've got,
Table's already there. Let's go.
I've got ideas for a whole new event now. But,
Perfect.
so yeah. Anyway, I just
Moving
thought
on.
that'd be be an interesting little tidbit to find out. But
Oh, that'd actually be cool, like a mystery box kind of army thing. You just turn up at a table and you have. A
I've
force in
thought
front of
about
you and
that
stuff.
too. I've thought about ways I could do it. I thought So just quickly on that, one of the ways I thought, one of the ways I thought about it, one of the ways I thought about it is that
New title.
I have the event set up so that everyone has an army, but they only build to like, let's say 850 points, and then I provide 500 points on top of that. That is random, that you don't know what you're getting. And I just walk up to the tables and the players and go, "This is for you for this game. This is for you this game." But it's different every game, so you have to leverage what you're getting every. Anyway, so I'll leave that. That's probably, knowing my track record, that's now going to be about another 9 months away. But
Anyway.
9 years.
But just very quickly, just putting an announcement out there. I think it's October. We've got Skulls for
November.
Is it November?
November.
Anyway, another Perth event coming up.
Thank.
But there is
It's November.
Yeah.
I think you underestimate how much I need to paint.
Oh yeah.
There's also
the other
one
for
which
October,
we won't talk too much
Yeah,
about that
yeah,
piece because
yeah.
it's still a work
Yeah.
in progress. But and I may be, depending on what happens, either another doubles or another singles event in between there somewhere, because I got some time off, so I might try and leverage that. But
Fair enough.
Keen as a bean.
yeah, we
Very
might
much so.
take a quick break.
Yep.
We'll sense check our equipment, and we'll jump into the main topic.
Yeah, this is the first time using this new equipment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice.
How is it? You enjoy it?
like it.
Fancy.
Cool. We'll see you in a sec.
All right.
So we're moving into the main. We're moving into the main topic now of infantry and some tactics around infantry or deep diving into the infantry. So just to give some context for people, this will be about how you use infantry on the field. So again, like with everything we do, this isn't going to guarantee you a win. I can't do that. I'm not a magic genie. But what I am able to do is give you examples of how I play, what I find works consistently, and what's working with my playstyle. And my co-hosts are going to do the same thing.
I can guarantee you there
Your
will be
co-hosts.
multiple.
The co-hosts.
Yeah, I can guarantee you there's going to be some different opinions around this table, I
100%.
reckon.
Yeah.
And
Which is exciting.
I'd recommend, if you guys have different opinions about all these points that we're hitting, just put them down in the comments. We want to know
Absolutely.
what
Yes.
works for your meta and
Yeah.
how you think about how
Yep.
this game should be played.
Yep. And it's not about us having the only way of how to do it. We're not that shallow to think that we're the all-knowing spot of everything.
Well, some of us are.
Well, at least out loud.
I'm not that shallow. But yeah, we obviously know that, this game is played arguably around the world. And as Jacob said, yeah, there's lots of different ways and interpretations of how it's being played, and some formats are more competitive or strict than others.
Very much so.
So the first question then, how many squads do you take and why? Why do you take that many? So I might actually open this one up and run through it. So in my lists, I actually prefer to take 4 squads of infantry.
Yep.
If they're regular. If they're veteran, I could get away with 3 squads, but I still prefer having 4. The idea behind the 4, let me just get my notes up here. The idea behind the 4 is that you have one unit that deploys in each section of the battlefield, so left, center, right flank, and then you have one that sits in reserve, either slanted left or right, that you can send either way to plug a gap, right?
Yep.
And the purpose behind being able to do that is the flexibility, because I prefer to have a flexible army that I can work with, and as we've talked about before, have the right tools available,
Or a
to
good
plug
enough tool.
gaps, or good
Yeah.
enough tool. Yeah, something that I can ram really hard to make the right tool. And
Leaving that euphemism on the table.
yeah, my bad.
We're not saving you, mate.
Innocence only gets you so far. But yeah, it gives me options, especially if the reserve is in a transport, that one that I sit at the back, if I put that in a truck or a half track or something like that, it also means I can move it faster and quicker and get it where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Veterans, if I run 3 squads, I generally tend them to I want them to be slightly larger squads, but we'll get into that with another question. But if I'm running 4, I'll run slightly less, but I get the better spread overall for the battle line. When we're talking about how many squads for inexperienced, that's really a case of how many are you going to let me have?
How long's a piece of string?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. What about yourself, Gorchin?
Interestingly, we build similarly, however, with completely disparate justifications. So I found that mine seems to be about 1 for every 250 points, thereabouts. So at 750, I want my minimum is 1 for every 250. So it's one. So I get 3 squads at 750, 4 at 1,000, 5 at 1,250. I have very recently gone to 5 in 1,000, and it's very powerful. And however, I also tend to play very aggressively.
Yeah.
So I've managed to slow down my tempo, so it's not as reckless as it used to be, but it can still be very reckless.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it here. You play ignore the tank, so that makes sense. If you've got 5 squads, you're just like, whatever.
I still bring a chaffee because I don't, because they're cheap.
Yeah.
And I am villainous scum.
Yeah.
And I play
You won't find me complaining.
and just all veteran, at least 4 veteran squads. I've now started toying with the idea of like mixed experience levels or mixed veterancy, but I'm not a fan.
Go fed or go home. That's kind of where
Pretty
mine
much.
is.
And so my thing is just death ball. So I will get 3 squads going straight up the guts, whether it's one flank or one another flank. I'll find a weak spot and I'll punch it. Reinforce that assault with a squad of engineers and truck and outflank. If I can outflank, if I can't, that is a mobile pillbox and it's moving up with my horde and it's going straight up the guts. And then that last squad will usually just be in a holding pattern. So it'll be securing a flank, protecting some weapon teams, annoying something else like a truck that sneaks 72 inches up the board. That's usually what I've got that 5th squad for. And for me, it's just, all veterans, as fat squads as I can get them. I will generally lean on squad number over squad size. So if I have to go from 10 to 8 to get the 5th squad, I'll do that. I will get 5 squads of 8 as opposed to 4 squads of 10. Yeah. I find that once you get below 7 or 8, it as a starting point, you start narrowing your the roles that squad can take. Having 6 guys trying to move across the board is not all that great. But having 7 or 8, you can take a couple of wounds. You can lose an ablative rifleman or 2, take some cover, you'll be fine. And then that can become your holding squad while they get leapfrogged by something else.
Yeah.
But I find that because I play aggressive, I play not necessarily fast anymore, but I do play aggressive. And so I need units that can bite and hold. So for me, it's just like, why would I do anything except veteran? Why would I go any smaller than 8 as a starting point? Because, as I said, for me, I feel like that the mission profile that unit can take disappears or narrows significantly as you start losing guys.
Yeah. I kind of like I death ball, but death ball differently. So like I did it with the the WAF-M.
Yeah.
I had my veteran fanatic full assault rifle toting boys, and just they would go anywhere I wanted and do just about anything they could wanted.
And so number of squads?
Yeah, so that's 1 squad, and then I had 4 other small squads.
Right. Okay.
So that's what I mean. If I death ball, I will have smaller squads.
You're doing it all in support of your one unit. Yeah.
Okay.
So you essentially you take 1 unit to go, right, this is going to be the sharp scalpel that I'm wielding, more like a sledgehammer, and the support is the other units that then work with that.
That's kind of how I like to run things, because a lot of what I do, I won't sit there and theory craft. I'll sit there and go, what's cool? How can I make this work? Yeah. So in regards to basically that and the partisans, it's 1 massive squad, small squads to support that movement.
Yeah, okay.
Have someone in the backfield, all of that. So I will have, at the moment, normally about 5 squads.
For 1,000 points?
Yeah. Because it's, the other squads are smaller. The idea being that the enemy is most likely going to be scared of the
bigger one.
The bigger one. And if they're not, well, then it's going to hurt when it gets there. So 5 squads is roughly what I do, unless I'm playing American. And then America, it's 3 10-man squads or 4 10-man squads. Depending on what else I'm taking.
Is that because you lack the ARs?
I lack ARs, and
you can't sort of hone one squad for one specific purpose?
Yeah, because the US are a lot more...
they combined arms in their approach, generally.
Yeah.
And you can't get 10 SMGs in a squad. You can't get...
You get 2, and I'm like, that's no fun. And then with Americans, because you got BARs, I'm like, yes, I'm going to put all the BARs in all the
Yeah.
squads. And so it's easier to max out a squad with BARs than it is with ARs or multiple LMGs just because of pricing. So you end up with more squads because you can afford them.
Yeah.
So yeah, sit around 4 or 5 just because I think, you can hold things and push things. It's a good time.
Well, a lot of our events have a dice limit. So typically we'll do something either 1,000 to 1,250, and maybe that has 12 order dice, maybe has 15 or whatever. But I don't feel comfortable if I don't have at least 3 squads, and they have to be 10 men, and they have to be veteran. And that's really
So far you've come.
that played around with a lot of just taking irregulars here or taking regulars here, maybe having them 8 men or 7 men or 6 men, and trying to load them up with LMGs and whatever else. And I just can't. I don't enjoy being that outnumbered or fighting up against a squad that might be a similar size but just has that 1 or 2 on me. I just find that it just really makes them quite weak.
Yeah.
10 guys is 100 points for regular. It's 130 for veteran. I feel that 30 points isn't hard to get per squad. And I feel it's not that hard to get when I'm only going to typically 3, which is an extra 90 points. But they're reliable, and I basically treat my squads as combat squads. I don't have one that's in mind that this is the backline guy who's going to sit on this objective. They got the flexibility across the force. And I know I'm jumping into a couple of questions we got here, but
we did
with Germans in particular, for a while I've been looking at 2 Panzerfaust squad, which is 10 points, which just seemed very cheap. I'm looking at 4 now. It is really strong, and it's effectively 18 because you're going to do an advanced move up to something to.
An interesting thing about like squad size, squad numbers, how many squads, is if I'm taking like one big and then a couple smaller that I do with the WAF-M, for example, I'll treat them like combat squads. In Warhammer with the Space Marines, how they can have 10 and then split into 2. Because I have about 5 or 6 guys in each, but I'll move them together in concert, so they're looking after each other. So like it's 3 squads, but it's 5 squads kind of thing.
Well, I think that's because we have touched on a couple of things, but we'll just explore those as we get to those questions. Because my next question, which we all naturally went into, which was how many troops do you have in a squad and why? And because you guys all sort of talked about that, I'll just do my part. But I'm actually very similar to all of you. So I find I have played and do play with a mix of all sorts of infantry depending on what I want to play and how I want to set things up. So sometimes I'll run vets, sometimes I'll run inexperienced, sometimes I'll run regular, and sometimes I'll run a mix, which could be any of all 3. But irrespective of what nation I play, irrespective of what unit type of morale that I get, I have some hard and fast rules about the number of models in those squads. So the easiest one is inexperienced. I want them all. I want as many models as you'll let me have in that unit.
Makes sense.
Their value to me generally is as a blocking force that your opponent has to deal with because it's big. Because in bolt action, even the inexperienced, like everyone writes off inexperienced as the absolute worst. Well, they are by default, but when you actually look at their statistics, they're not half bad at all. They still actually maintain about a 50 to 60% success rate depending on where you're putting them. The further away they are, the less effective they are. The closer they are, the more effective. Now, obviously, that goes the same for your opponent. But if your effectiveness is the same as a regular unit within 12 inches, why would you bother doing anything different? I've got more guns. When it comes to regular, has to be at least 10 because I find that that gives me a really nice balance of the attrition rate, but also being able to run around and survive to do things. If they get out to 12, that's fine. I'll take somewhere in there. When I look at a regular squad, I'm specifically looking at the number of models that I need to max out the strength to leverage that free order reroll. If I can get that free order reroll for 10 to 12 models, I'll try and find space to fit the extra couple of models in.
Strange. I never think about full strength. So
most people don't because it's actually extremely useful on inexperienced infantry. But then the first guy dies and it's useless. But it's something which your veterans actually end up getting a lot more than your regulars. But
Right,
then the
'cause you'll get
veterans
hit,
actually,
but it might not convert
yeah,
to
but
damage.
statistically the
Yeah.
veterans actually fail less, so it's sort of a moot point. It's a
It-
bit of a sweet spot for regulars, but
It's actually something I've only just recently like clued in on, but I have a table of probabilities here, which I was looking at. So to get a 10 on 2d6, there's about a 16% chance you get a 10, but to get a 9, it's 27.8. So you're basically, it's about 1 in 4 chance. To get an 8, it's a 1 in 2 chance. So it's a 50% chance.
All right.
So if you're at 7, if your morale is at 7, so a 10, a veteran squad with 3 pins or a regular squad with 2 pins, there's a 50-50 chance you won't activate.
Yep.
And
Yeah, right.
and that's actually not a number I fully appreciated. That it was that when you get to 7 or less on a 2d6,
you drop
your,
under.
your best chance is a 50-50. And then if you go to 6 morale, so 7 causes you to fail, there's a 60% chance you fail.
Yep.
So now that I actually am aware of that, like on a conscious level, the difference between a regular unit and a veteran unit is worth like 13% off the bat on one pin of chance to activate, which is a difference in 16 and 28%.
Yeah.
Like that's
quite big.
that's
quite big.
worth the 3 points per
Yeah.
man for me.
Yeah.
And especially because you can cop an extra pin and still be very functional.
And they also die on 5s.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a
yeah.
massive thing for me
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
veterans. Like,
Yeah, it's in a similar way, the veterans have their other benefits. Veterans also generally will have better equipment options, which makes them favorable in that sense as well. I trained myself how to play bolt action deliberately using regulars. So when I get the extra toys in a squad, it feels like Christmas every time. Because I'm like, I get how many dice?
yeah. That's how I choose to like look at my numbers in a squad. I'm looking, how can I get Christmas in this game? And the answer for partisans is 20. I have, so that's where the big difference for me is, because normally.
So now we're moving on to preference of weapon.
No,
No, he's talking about numbers.
still
Oh,
size.
sorry.
So like I always try and max out my squads.
Okay.
Always maxing out my squads. And in regards to
Well,
like everything,
You're maxing out your main
Your main
assault
squad,
squad,
right?
but you're not maxing out the other 3 or 4 squads.
I try and max out all my squads. Yeah. So in my head, it is
Tyler
maxed
has
out.
not a firm grasp of his own strategy.
Listen. In my head, it is a maxed out quote unquote squad because I move those 2 in support of each other.
Yep.
So like it's a 5-6 man squad, 5-6-7 man squad, and there's 2 of them moving.
But
So
together you've got your 11, sort of 10, 11 man.
Yeah. So
That
that's
makes
like
sense.
I'm always looking to see how I can max out as many squads as possible, while still keeping that Christmas element. Like I want to have fun with my toys, and for me that is how big can I make something this ridiculous?
Yeah, no, that's perfectly, I think perfectly reasonable.
And like that's what I sacrifice. I can't max out all my squads, but I will max this squad. Yeah. What you were saying about the next one though was weapon preference.
Oh, well, just before we get to that, I'll just recap. For veterans, for me, the lowest I'd ever run a veteran squad is 7.
Yeah.
Yep.
I generally prefer 8 to 10.
Yeah.
In the list that I took to Skulls, it would have been about a year ago now, my American Airborne, which I almost won. I was so close. But either way, that ran 2 units of 8 paratroopers with their weaponry, and a unit of 5 engineers. It was very, very slim, but I basically didn't drop a game at all.
Yeah.
So you'll tell me if I'm wrong. Is the normal squad size for Americans in particular 8-man? That seems to be the go-to.
So engineers are maxed at it. I don't think you can actually get engineers bigger than 8.
No, sorry. I mean, it just normal infantry
a regular-
squads.
The smallest you
it
can.
depends.
Is that the general consensus? Is that
Nah.
you're taking
Would
8?
are you
or
talking about historics or what's in bolt action?
bolt action?
So in bolt action,
I think
and
the
this actually
minimum
goes
is
across-
6. The largest is 10.
Yeah.
There's
Sorry.
actually some American squads that go out to 12.
13.
Public,
Yeah, okay.
I mean, is in public
Conventionally.
consensus. No, public consensus. What do people normally seem to take?
Public consensus on an internet show? Are you crazy?
What do
Look.
people normally take?
Look,
so I can only speak for what I've seen at events and the different lists that have been submitted to me over the last 3 years. Most people across the board, irrespective of unit category, will go 10.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
that's the generic. 10 seems to be that optimal number that feels nice, represents appropriately a squad, therefore a company, the platoon, brigade, all that. As
Dan's
it folds
calling
up.
me out because I default to 8.
I'm not calling you out because you default to 8.
He's calling me out for other reasons.
But depending on, so some of our more experienced players or have been playing war games for a long time, they know how to get into what's known as the multiple small unit mentality. So generally the way you're playing at the moment, you've got your big block and then the several small blocks that go with it that work together to reach a goal. You've also got my play style, which is a more balanced distribution of that force across everything, but everything is still medium to large size. And that sort of crosses over to where you guys are. You'll use slightly more higher quality troops, but still actually a fairly even distribution. There's actually, and the 8-man is where it starts to move with multiple small unit, which is simply, you now have smaller blocks of troops. They're not always higher quality, but you simply have more of them than your opponent. And you use that as a way to leverage different things within the game. So our more experienced players that enjoy that kind of a play style, they might run, squads of 5, squads of 6. Now, with the big thing that limits that sort of play style is the dice cap. So if you've got a dice cap,
the max number of squads, because
most
selectors
nations
is about
stuck
5,
at 5, right?
maybe 6.
Yep. So if you told me that you were coming to an event at 1,000 points, single reinforced platoon, and you took 5 squads of 5 men, I'd probably go, you need to go reconsider your list. Like, you're not going to hold anything because your squads are going to get blown away, even if you run them in tandem. Like, you're telling, you're going to have something big and scary in the back line because you've got units of 5, but your opponent's infantry are going to eat you up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of benefits, though, because you've got more order dice. You've got pins that will get spread across different units. You've got more potential to activate. So I understand where you're coming from. And you haven't thought about this. More potentials for small teams to come up.
Look, the only reason those side support squads are smaller than I would like comfortably is because I also take a frickin' panther with it. Like, so that's such a massive, and I do try and take that as veteran. So that's like the biggest point. Like, everyone's like, "Oh my god, that's such a massive infantry blob." It's like, you should see what's in the back. Like, there's another massive point.
So distracted by the infantry that they don't see the giant panther.
Look, so that's a reason that I don't max out the squads. I would like to, though, obviously.
Yeah, interesting. So we actually, as you said, we got very similar build styles for a couple of different things, but we actually apply that build very differently. Which I think would be the same if we went over to the US or UK and asked the same questions, we'd get different responses.
Yeah, for sure.
So when it comes down to, so preference of weaponry across your force, so not just an individual unit, but how do your infantry units work together in terms of weaponry?
Yeah. I run like very classical kind of military doctrine on this one, in the sense that an infantry squad has a long list of missions that they need to be able to complete. But the first and foremost is seek out the enemy, destroy them, and hold the territory, which means that my guys need to be mobile. They need to be lethal at multiple range bands. So SMGs for 12 and below, rifles and BARs for 24 up. Right, so they need to be lethal at both of those range bands. But because I am, but because of the nature that I play and the way that missions go, and because this is ultimately a chance-based game, I'm not comfortable having squads that are so like razor-edged and honed for a specific mission, because a heavy mortar will hit him and take out the squad. A howitzer will catch him. They'll fail an order test or something like that. So this is where that kind of military doctrine comes in, where if you've got 3 squads in a platoon, they're all outfitted the same and ideally to the same number, TOE and reinforcements allowing. So the idea is that it doesn't matter which one of them gets caught, they can stop and hold the line, and the other two can maneuver around them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so with the exception of my engineers, all of my squads will be outfitted the same or as close to similar as possible. And I found that as much as I like Ranger Special Rule, I found that it is very I don't even call it like risk reward. I think it's very much a bear trap. Like you have to remember exactly where you put it, otherwise you're going to step in it, not the bear.
Yeah.
And so it can really be as much of a trap as it is a boon. And so instead, I think I'm probably going to go back to running Marine squads because they can take 3 SMGs on top of the NCO and up to 3 BARs.
Yep.
And I found that 3 BARs in a squad and 3 SMGs total gives you this really like disgusting thing where when you're at 24 inches or further, you can advance and dish out a German MMG plus rifles at range.
Yep.
And then as you get closer, you now start dishing out the SMGs as well.
Yep.
And so you go from when you get to 15 inches, your BRs are no longer in long range. And then you're just outside of SMG range. And then you just keep encroaching on these positions, and you just become more and more dangerous the closer you get. And of course, there's not one squad doing that. There's at least 3.
Yeah.
And then again, I find that if there is no angle for me to approach, that's fine. I'll sit in cover with my BARs, and I will just sling pins with that back squad all day.
Yep.
And so that's why for me I have to have all of my squads outfitted the same, just because it's not so much about having redundancy, more so about the flexibility to pivot and capture opportunities and lean them one way or another. The exception, of course, being engineers, but even then, they can only take 1 extra SMG, which I'll take, and they can take a BAR, which I'll take, and I'll take the flamethrower for obvious reasons. And so even if I can't outflank that squad, while not as lethal as other squads, because it's only 8 guys, 1 BAR, etc.
I don't know. It has a flamethrower.
I'm saying at range.
Oh, at range.
Not as lethal at range. That's, if you've got 8 guys, you're still probably firing about 6 to 8 shots, depending on a couple of factors, at 24 inches.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's going to be a pin. You maybe kill 1 or 2. You stack that, and you pick one target with all of your squads. It was 4 or 5 pins.
Yeah.
and now you're free to advance.
Yeah. I'm so wildly different. Everything I do is
Yeah.
specialized. Like,
Yep.
like for example, WAFM squad and sides, partisans, 120-man squad, all veterans, SMGs, and then I've got a specialized squad that is just guys with pistols. It's 20 guys with pistols. Have fun moving those. Like
They were logistical support, weren't they?
you guys go fight. We'll be right behind you.
Are they shirkers as well?
I have played around with the idea of making them shirkers. I can.
Just be careful, because Shirkers
'Cause
is
you'll need another
very,
box.
very... well, no, Shirkers is very, very double-edged as a rule. So it offers a fantastic point reduction that obviously frees up points in your list. But a single light mortar can ruin your day.
Yeah, and see, this is the thing. I know my list is specialized. I know I need that to do that thing for this to work. And when it works, like it's golden. Like when the Panther actually hits something, it's golden. Like, and when it falls apart, maybe it's maybe the way I play this game is emotional mitigation. Right? Let me explain. If it's specialized, it works. Euphoria, awesome, great job. If it fails, like I had a plan. That's the only way it's going to work. Like, there's very little chance of me. It's like, oh well, all right, I'll just play now.
You don't build a lot of redundancy into your lists. Like, you don't necessarily build a lot of...
Well, he's not bringing a second Panther, that's for sure.
and he's not bringing another unit of 20 partisans either.
Well, 20 guys with SMGs, 20 guys with pistols. That's 20 men.
The complete
If I
opposite
didn't
ends
make
of the
it,
same
if I
spectrum.
didn't make it clear, I discounted the pistol unit.
To your detriment, my friend.
Yes.
No, but yeah, it's weird because I will do that with Germans. I'm doing that with my partisans.
Yeah.
Give me the US though, I play like you. It's the weirdest thing. I'm like, no, everyone must be the same. Flexibility, maneuverability, that's the name of the game. It's the weirdest thing. It only happens when I'm playing with the US, and I literally...
I'm so proud.
I literally think it's for 2 reasons. 1, BARs slap. 2, I play with this guy way too much. Any
This is
conversation I have with Gorchin, it's this is how US like functioned in reality. This is how I play them. I'm like, that makes so much sense. Like if he started playing Partisans, I'd be like, that makes so much sense. Like, with anything that was said, because the way that you look at the game, like you're looking up like tables on percentages and stuff and all that. I'm like, I need 6s to hit. Let's roll, baby. Like,
Picks up 20 pistol shots.
it's just like complete.
We got a pin.
Mission accomplished. Go home, boys. Yeah, it's just radically different to the way. But like, if it works, when it works, oh my God, it feels good.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in a tournament setting. Like, and that's another thing that I find people don't expect the list. Like, they expect the OmniTool US list to an extent.
Yeah, it's probably because I publish it publicly every time I go to a tournament before the tournament.
I think also the default stance is to run what is perceived as a balanced list.
Yeah.
With the OmniTool approach.
Yeah. And so I don't do that. And like, that makes the the game fun for me in regards to being able to play around with things. And it's like last year, someone bought 6 tanks in a tank platoon to one of the events. And it was like,
Mike Wayne, yeah.
He had a great day, and I think he actually won a game or two. Like
you fought him, right?
No.
Yeah, and so it's...
I skirted that table.
I think, I won't say there's strategic merit in both, but yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah. No, it's interesting because Gorcham was talking about how he outfits his US teams. And I always had the thought process, how I do my stuff is everything has... I go all in with the one idea. So typically, my squads are riflemen. Yeah. I don't have mixed squads. I don't have a couple of SMGs and an LMG and some ARs. Like, I'll go, all right, this is my kill squad. This will be my SMG squad. And you can do that with Germans. There's so many opportunities where you can outfit them with everybody has this type of weapon. But you're saying that for the US, you can't really do that.
It's very rare for the US to be able to, for example, not that it can't be done, but it's very rare for them to be able to go, those 12 guys, I want them to have 12 submachine guns.
But you can do that with Germans and multiple ways.
You certainly can't do it with BARs.
Yeah. So
12 BARs in a squad.
So yeah, I mean, I design my units with their purpose. This is my SMG squad. And this is my rifle squad. And Soviets can do the same because they've got, oh my gosh. I think whenever you fight Nick, when he does Soviets, he's always got an SMG squad. And it might have 10, it might have 12 guys. I don't know.
You can get up to 12.
Yeah. Then he's got
not
12.
Not just the tank riders. So so I started with the Soviets. And the Soviets very much is what weapon would you like, comrade? Go pick one up. So, I'm sure at some point, when I first rocked up, I started with like 3 anti-tank rifles, a full unit of submachine gunners. They have a submachine gun squad that was essentially the organizational unit was created sort of mid to late war, and it's 12 submachine gunners that are regular. So you don't even have to be veteran to get it. You can do it as regular, which makes it cheaper. Because for the cost of a regular man without a gun, I get a man with a gun.
Was that part of the Guards division, or was it part of the urban reformation?
As part of the Guards divisions, I think it was part of the Guards divisions. They actually took a section.
I've been doing homework.
They actually took a section of them and went, Stalingrad worked out really well to have lots of submachine guns. We're just going to make that a formation. And so they went, you grab a PPSH, you grab a PPSH, and everyone just went and picked one up. And so then they started fielding on paper, the Soviet function, obviously, paper is like, ooh, blah, 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 number of brigades and battalions. Reality, there's 5 guys over there with a submachine gun. It's like, but they're a squad.
Interesting. You saw the same thing Eastern Front Wehrmacht doing. They on paper took it to the nth level with their Panzergrenadier units. They had machine and pistol Zugs or platoons, and they also had like Sturm Pioneers, which we know as assault engineers, but they were like, no, they had normal pioneers, which is what everybody understands as engineers, dealing with fortifications and that sort of hard targets. Then they went with Sturm Pioneers, which was specifically urban assault engineers. Like that was their whole thing.
Right.
They went that nth level, and they created they specially trained. So engineers are specially trained infantry, and then Sturm Pioneers are specially trained yet again.
Over the top. But so the Soviets can do quite a lot of different things. But
I've got a weird theory. Okay, hear me out. I just thought of this. So PPSH,
distractions.
Yeah. Here we go. PPSH, after Stalingrad, Russians are like, yes, give us lots of those, right?
I don't necessarily think it was just after Stalingrad, but it was certainly one of the bigger influences in the city fighting.
Basically, they were like, PPSH, good gun, give everyone, right? Is that when they decided to put PPSH in the belly of
I
a
wondered
plane?
if you were going to bring that up.
Yeah.
So for those
Please include this
for
still shot.
for those
right
of you
here.
that don't know, obviously during World War II, and arguably during World War I, but during World War II, there was a lot of weapons experimentation, and political figures decided they liked certain things over other things in different nations. And one of the ideas, apart from the flying T-26, there was or T-60, I think it was. Sorry. Apart from that, there were all sorts of armaments that were created and disguised, and one of them was a bank of, I think it's like 40 PPSHs, set automatically to fire in a low strafing run out of the belly of this bomber.
Yeah, they re-equipped the bomb bay,
Yes.
and they like rigged, I think, 40 or 50 PPSHs. So instead of a 250-pound bomb, you had a PPSH with a full magazine.
Yep.
And like the trigger tied with like a cable
Yep.
to each other.
Yep.
It's like a couple hours to reload it or something.
You reload back at base, but
Yes.
the good news is it's all in magazines, so you spend half an hour just slotting them in.
Imagine being the poor bastard who sit there and like put
the
like
bullets in.
9mm in
No.
his magazine.
No, they come like that from the factory. Yeah, no, that's the guy we're talking about.
That's like a drum magazine too, isn't
Yeah.
it? That's no easy task.
Yeah, but I think I guess.
How's that for air support?
Well, but the thing was, it was highly ineffective.
Yeah,
like
of course it would
never
be.
got out of prototyping
Yeah,
and
yeah.
conceptual design. But yeah, there are lots of
And
crazy things.
We've talked about this before. It's like the Russians see a concept,
Yes.
and then they get it,
and
then
they test it.
and then they turn it upside down,
Yes.
and they completely miss the point.
Well, I think sometimes.
When this came up before, the Germans actually had a very similar thing. They called it Schrägmusik, which was basically rather than using it on bombers to shoot infantry, they put it on interceptors, which are very high-speed planes that take out bombers, and they put 20mm cannons on the top. So you'd park under a bomber, disassemble them, and then fly away.
And then fly away. Yeah. Ignore the fact that you're potentially blowing up bombs that are falling towards you. I think there's a whole bunch of weird, wacky stuff that you can look at and find out about. Just Google quirky
it was
weapons.
just a theory of like, they're like, oh, PPSH.
Yes.
All PPSH. Flying PPSH.
I'm not going
I
to
love
deny.
this.
I'm not going to deny
That wasn't the
there
conversation.
I'm not going to deny that there is possibly an inkling of that being a reality of how that conversation went. But
Sorry, back
Not-
on topic.
back on top.
Distractions.
So I'm like you, Jacob.
Yeah.
My adage is, don't doubt the workhorse of the war, which was the infantryman's rifle.
Yeah.
They all had slightly different impacts. Obviously, you had the Mauser, the Mosin-Nagant, and all the different variants that went through, and one Garand. But their whole purpose was to be mass-produced, accurate to a certain range, effective as an infantry weapon. So Gorchin's like, I'm going to say something.
I just had for this. I'm going to bring my Australian to the mid-war event,
Yay.
but I'm really upset now
Oh.
because I just came up with a really good idea for an American list for the mid-war event. Just go with like North American GI squads, 12 guys, 1 BAR. That's it. just
I
bring
have a
like,
list like that.
Yeah,
actually.
just bring 3 of them in an M10 and be like, I'm here for this. I'm here all day.
yeah. But essentially, the rifle has 24-inch range, so it's actually got a good threat range. Because when you move your 6, you're essentially punching 30, so that's not quite as good as a BAR, but it's getting close.
Yeah.
In terms of range, not in terms of shots. The unit as a whole can actually put out a high volume of fire, and they're actually powerful enough to threaten jeeps or trucks, light vehicles and stuff. Anything that's open top to put those pins on it. You can often, because you've got the range, you can actually not threaten for kills, but threaten to just impede and harass. When it comes to my actual squads and then overall in my army, I actually prefer, even if I've got the ability to focus a unit type into a particular squad, I actually prefer to spread it out because it suits with the way that I play in the balanced where I spread the distribution of men, spread the distribution of weapons. And so if any one point in my line is taken out, it actually isn't to the detriment of the rest of the line and the rest of the force. It means that essentially 2/3 of my force generally is going to have a rifle. sometimes more. So my Bulgarians, for example, where they actually don't even get the option for certain things, their 7 out of 10 are rifles every time. Like they just don't get. And the only reason I don't have the 8th rifle in there is because he's holding onto that Panzerfaust really hard. So there's benefit in being able to get those extra shots at 24 inches over assault rifles or over submachine guns as a focused unit. But that being said, I've also played the other side where my Soviets, when I started, it was concentrated. I had rifle unit, submachine gun unit, the guard squad, which was rifles with a light machine gun, and I didn't bother putting SMGs in there because I wanted the submachine gun squad to be more aggressive and move up the field, whilst the others provided overlapping fields of fire. But I've moved to the more balanced stuff, and most of my opponents, I think, would agree, not trying to speak too highly of myself or anything, but when they look at how I deploy my battle line, there's not actually a weak squad. It doesn't exist. And so they know that they're going to have to fight me on create a spot where they go, I need to lure you out of position and exploit it. Because there's no fire differentials. It's not simply like I found with my Soviet squads, they would look at the submachine guns and they go, well, they can't shoot me for 2 turns. They're not a priority. So I'm going to focus on your other 3 squads. And they would whittle those down. And then when the submachine guns got in, I was able to deal damage at that one point. But I'd lost the ability to deal damage on the rest of the army.
Soviets do seem to have that kind of specialization thing. Like even to the point where I'm pretty sure maybe it's a theater selector or something, but they get a unit which is literally just 2 guys who can forward deploy.
With a Panzerfaust.
Yeah.
So cool.
That's their whole job. It's to fire that thing and then run away.
It's not a theater thing.
It's not?
That's actually one of their anti-tank hunter selections.
I love it.
So what it
3
represents, what it starts at, you can get, because Soviets can take 3 for 1 choice for anti-tank teams. So normally people do it with anti-tank rifles because they're actually really good as well. But you can do it with these tank hunter teams. So it was a bit gamey. It wasn't actually necessarily a true representation like what some of my other lists are, but it was 3 of those squads, the tank hunter squads, as 2-man. So you've got small team by default with essentially a Panzerfaust each or whatever. And the whole purpose with them was to also go with my sniper and then to go with the actual infantry squads, which there were 5 of, and they were Soviet scout squads.
Right, yeah.
That entire line forward deploys.
Far out.
So I would then go, right, so that's my infantry concerns essentially done, because the Soviet scouts are veterans with high levels of submachine guns in that squad. They're pretty tough. And so I was like, so that's all my infantry issues taken care of. What do I back that up with? And I was like, a 2nd lieutenant with a Katyusha and a Ziz-2 howitzer. That sounds great. So, not a Ziz-2 howitzer, sorry. A Ziz-2 anti-tank gun. Ziz-2? No, the Ziz-3.
Ziz-3 is the dual roll.
It's the dual roll. And so my first turn, after having forward deployed and scared my opponent half to death, was then like, smoke.
How many squads is that? How many points is that in forward deployment in that particular list?
Probably 700-800.
Yeah, I think the anti-tank teams are really cheap
because it's 2 guys in a Panzerfaust.
It's 2 guys in a Panzerfaust.
Yeah, but the squad,
you don't pay. You don't really. The scout squads, so they're veterans, so they're 13 points each,
and then 1 point
they
for
max
the special rule.
They max out at. I think it's 1 point for the special rule. They max out at, I think, 7 in a squad though, so you're not getting 10. You're only getting 7.
Yeah, right.
Which makes them almost the same price as a 10-man regular squad.
Right. Yeah, of course.
So I've got 5 squads. Let's call that 500 points. 50 points for the sniper, because I actually take regular snipers, not veteran snipers normally.
Sacrilege.
What the hell is wrong with you?
And then I've got I had 3 anti-tank teams, which they're like 30 points each.
Yeah.
So what's that? That's less sub 700 points.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Katyusha's 80.
Interesting.
Lieutenant's 50.
I just want to see how many points you can push up a board as fast as possible. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, but either way,
the word you're looking for is obnoxious.
Yeah,
or oppressive.
Literally.
So anyway, and that's only with 1 platoon.
Jesus.
Japanese have a
please?
lot of forward deployment stuff as well.
The funny thing is, like,
it's a fun mechanic.
It's a fun mechanic, but I don't like abusing it that way, so I haven't really gone back to it. I certainly.
Next game.
In other news, we're going to be starting a Soviet army. Oh, weird coincidence.
Crazy.
Wow, your shopping basket says 5 scout squads. So then I guess the next part of that. So we've talked about types of squad, number of squads, who's in a squad, what weapons do you have. So that's all fairly basic stuff that we've talked about at the moment. It's all the stuff that we generally talk about that you can get specifics on. The next few questions start talking about things that we've always been abstract about. So think a bit when we're trying to get the view across to the listeners. Let's try and make it not abstract as best as we possibly can. How do you approach an objective?
I've got a good answer for you on that one, Dan.
With infantry.
Okay, so the first thing with an objective, I guess the premise of this question is that it's an objective that you don't control.
Correct.
Right. So the way that I move is, again, based off the GI handbook. So when you deploy your platoon, the standard advanced to contact deployment. So you've done your administrative move from your reserve area to near a combat zone. You've gotten your mission plan, and now you're going out to engage the enemy, but you don't know where they are. You just know that they're in that direction. What you do is you deploy in a triangle formation with 2 corners up front and the 3rd corner at the back, and your HQ element either behind it or in the middle. So the idea is that one of those 2 front squads is going to make the contact, and you will pivot the triangle as a shape against it and leave that 3rd squad in reserve to either move around them and flank or to plug a gap in the line. And so I will advance with 2 squads up front and a 3rd squad just behind them in the middle. And I will approach every objective like that. And so when I've got 4 squads, that means that what typically ends up happening is one of those squads will get caught, and then I will reform the triangle with my 4th squad and keep moving those 3 squads instead and leave that other one in position.
For dead.
Well, for dead, it's like, they've stacked 3 or 4 pins on it. Fine, cool. I'll just use one of my other squads. And so the idea is that there's always, I don't ever want to be in a position where it's a one-on-one fight.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is I'm fighting. If I've got 1 squad going up against the howitzer team, I want there to be a 2nd squad shooting at that howitzer team. Or in threat range. If I shoot it and I kill 2 or 3 guys and they go down, whatever, like, cool, all right, that's them not activating for a term. I will keep moving the triangle around. And so the idea is that there's always 1 squad who is not the primary target of my opponent, but it is in a position to plug that gap. So if a lucky template or an order test takes out one of my assaulting squads, doesn't matter. One of the other 2 will move and fill in the gap. So my answer is triangles.
I like
hexagons, man.
aliens. No, like that's amazing. I like that's awesome. I don't have anything as fancy as that when it comes to it. My biggest takeaway that I have learnt recently, and you guys are going to kick me. For a lot of the objectives, you don't have to hold it for the entire game.
Correct.
Yeah.
So don't hold it for the entire game. That's what it's come down to.
Now you're sounding like me. If you're losing, don't keep losing.
It's easy,
yeah,
guys.
except this one's
just
a bit
walk
easier.
away.
This one's a bit easier. You literally just go, nah. No, but
So
like,
how'd you learn
that
this
was,
one? What happened?
Oh, far out. What didn't happen? Basically,
Well, was that in Dueling Aces where Mission 1 where
that's
I was
when
telling
it
you
clicked.
Yeah, I had like 5 times. You don't have to hold it for the whole game, Tyler.
That's when it clicked. I was like, I'm going to get 2 squads up. I'm going to run them. They're just going to get there. They're just going to hold it for the rest of the game. And I just kind of sat back, and they made it, and then got shot a lot.
For 3 or 4 turns.
Because and I couldn't do anything back because they get pins.
Do you
They can't
remember
fire
when
back,
I was?
and so they just got closer and just wiped them out.
Do you remember when I was walking by? And I don't know if you heard my comment, but I was like, "Oh, they advance pretty aggressively."
Yeah, look. That's when it clicked. I've learned a couple of lessons from Dueling Aces, like don't
That's
group
good, though.
up with a
That's good.
never-worther around. But
Yeah, that was funny.
rip.
Got grouped up, hit by Neverworth, and then
Grouped up.
the next activation went to move a squad together. It's like, Tyler, what are you doing?
Look, a lot of lessons to learn, but that's like the first time that I learnt that was actually in the Christmas game.
Yeah,
Because I was sitting there, I'm like, we don't have to hold this. This doesn't have to, like, even your own objective and Necromunda as well. That's when it freaking really clicked.
Yeah.
I don't have to hold that. I don't have to. I can just like play.
Yeah, you don't have to babysit it.
Yeah,
That scenario is actually also even better for that lesson because once the opponent has captured the objective, you can't recapture it.
Correct.
So it's just like, oh, fine, okay, it's yours. It's yours for the rest of the game. Doesn't matter what I do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so that is the biggest thing when approaching an objective. Don't do it until you have to. Like,
Yeah.
No, that's
like
good.
plan
That's
around
really
it.
smart.
Because you can come around.
Timing.
Timing
Timing.
is everything. You
Yep.
can come around. You can smack the crap out of that objective until it's like, do or die, fellas. Let's do this thing.
Controlling an objective does not mean standing on it.
That's right. Yeah.
You heard it
That's
here first.
I want that on a t-shirt.
What about you, Jacob?
I mean, really, I try and look at what is like holding that objective from the other points of view. Like, where is the sniper that's covering that?
So you're looking
Or-
at angles.
Yeah, yeah. Really, just trying to focus on, is that objective effectively zeroed in because it's got position
yep.
from mortars and everything else, and I tend to go for it when it's a bit more safer.
Yeah, okay.
I guess.
Yep.
So you'll soften it up.
Yeah, I'll soften it up and I'll move around rather than going straight for it.
So yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
perfect.
that's-
Fire and maneuver.
Yeah.
Suppress it, get them out
I
of the
don't
fight.
have triangles.
This is great, right? So
Yeah.
for everyone playing at home, we deliberately didn't discuss our answers to these questions because we wanted to bring it up on the cast. My answer touches on all three of those points.
I didn't know that was a deliberate choice. I just thought that's something we did.
Yeah.
We're organized.
Homework. No.
But so my thing is
Playing games here.
So my first thing that I do when I'm approaching an objective is identify which of my units is closest and roughly eyeball the distance on the battlefield and make the assessment of how many turns do I need to get there effectively.
Yeah, okay.
So it's partly on Tyler's point of you don't have to actually move there, but it's how many turns away am I going to need because that determines when you have to start moving.
Yep.
Are there enemy units nearby? Do I need to be aware of other threats? Has anyone, heaven forbid that someone's put an artillery marker down there and you want to just stroll in going like, this will be great. And then if there is enemy units around, and sometimes even if there's not, bring a friend, bring support with that unit. Because if you're going to approach an objective, you're obviously lining up to attack that objective, which flows into one of the other questions that we've got. But bring something that the infantry are going to have to focus on or are going to struggle with. So bring the armored car or a tank or bring the transport that has the bigger gun or something like that. Maybe even the dedicated support unit like the flamethrower, right? Because that puts a lot of pressure on. Now, me personally, going the next level down, I have what I call a strike distance. So my strike distance is 8.5 inches away from that objective, generally in terrain.
Very specific measurement.
Yes, it is. 8.5 inches means that neither of us are getting point blank unless one of us moves.
Okay.
It does mean that if I'm going to do a charge through terrain, that I can't get you, you can't get me. 8.5
with a
inches.
point blank charge. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
8.5 inches is less than 12, so I'm not getting any weapon penalty drops for it, but I'm still getting the benefit of color. 8.5 inches is once you're dead on the objective, all things going well, I make an advance move of 6 and I'm within 3.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Very powerful.
So
the question is, and Dan, I don't mean to have a go at your trigonometry skills. How do you measure that without measuring that?
well, yeah, that's I've got here in
You see,
brackets
Dan
best
got a-
guess.
Circuitry upgrade.
Yeah,
And he can just look at two things and measure them. It's like
What
the
you-
iPod.
What
Yeah.
you don't know
iPhone.
is I actually, before everyone gets there for the events, I put infrared tags on all the markers and I just
That's why
scan
your
them with my
eyes
brain.
glow. Yeah.
Anyway, it's best guess. So that effort,
Yeah.
that takes a lot of effort to build up, but I can roughly approximate what that looks
Yeah.
like.
For sure. It's just if you're out that half inch, suddenly you're at 3 inches on the objective and you're like, shit out of luck.
Well, that depends. Because if you know how long it's going to get there for the game, but the objective is clear, you can always use the next turn.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's about knowing how much time you've got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know 8.5 inches, yes, is very specific.
Yeah, of
it is
course.
very much a best guess. You could still do it at 12. It's just a touch harder.
But it's the optimal thing. There's a
Optimal.
yeah.
It's what I aim for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a perfect optimal case. And then there's 9, there's 10, there's 6,
Yep.
there's 7. But
And then there's I counted that wrong. It's 13. But that sort of goes into then, so how do you then position to attack an objective? So this is specifically a defended objective, and we all briefly just touched on that a little bit. And so largely, for me, it's the same way as above, but I try and position myself with so I don't want to make an immediate move, so I want to be further than the 8.5, but within 12. So generally, somewhere within 12 is ideal, because it removes all those hit modifiers for range for rifles, which is what I've been using a lot of with my Bulgarians. But the biggest difference is you have to make the mental decision to commit to the attack.
Yeah.
So if I'm at the point where I'm gonna wrestle that off you, I need to bring as much support required to get to as close as a 2-to-1 ratio as I possibly can, but not necessarily 2-to-1 ratio in damage, 2-to-1 ratio for pins. I want to be able to suppress you. If I can suppress you, I can take the unit out.
Yeah.
We all know that we talk about pins all the time being a fairly significant part of bolt action, and it is. But when I'm attacking an objective, I really want to just make sure that those defenders, even if they do shoot back at me, are severely hampered and not able to impact my attack coming over the line. And also, word to the wise, close combat is a last resort. Absolute last resort.
But it's so cool.
It is. It is. And look, I have been part of charges before where a lone officer has killed 10 veterans before when he had no right to be doing anything like that at all. And it has won me games before on that.
Every now and again, you find out that your platoon commander is Chesty Puller.
Yeah. Or Iron Man, as it may be. Like, it's just crazy. But
Mad Jack.
But the thing is, it's the close combat is too fickle in this game for me personally to wager.
I don't think that's personal.
To wager an assault based on an objective. I'd much rather get in there and whittle them down with the shooting. Sure, if it's last turn and you've got nothing to lose because you're not going to be able to get it any other way, because they're too powerful, so your guns won't make a difference. Sure, throw the charge in there because you're losing at that point for the objective.
I will happily admit that I was sitting on a draw and I charged a unit out of a building through an ambush at a small team just so I could hit that small team, hopefully win the assault, get the D6 3 inches, and then run off the board with it.
Perfect.
And all the way, except we got an even number of kills and then we had to fight again. I was like, oh no!
So close.
I went from 8 guys to 3 in combat and we got an even number of kills, which is 1. And then we went again.
It's crazy.
Yep. But yes,
risk it to get the biscuit. There's never any biscuits.
That's right. So that pretty much wraps up where we are on attacking. It's very similar to how you'd approach it, but it's following through on a commitment.
Yes.
But then we're going to talk about defense. So defending an objective for me is slightly different to how I would want to obviously attack one. Obviously, I'm not approaching it. I generally should hold one. But it's all going to depend on how you play, but you really want to look at what cover and what terrain's available on the board around that objective.
I really like Tyler's way of talking about attacking an objective where you don't really need to commit until the last few turns.
Or
maybe you should also think about that for defending as well, because typically having a squad in one spot for 6 turns, he's probably wasting 4 turns of activations.
Oh, easily.
And he's a target for the entire game.
Yep. Mortars love things like that. They just sit there and don't do anything.
And so that kind of touches on the most important part for me about whether you're attacking or defending. And so during my rolling triangle vortex, when I'm attacking an objective, one of the things that I try to do is I try to expose the largest amount of my attacking force to the smallest number of defenders. Yep. So that is, particularly in bolt action, it's not necessarily the smallest number in terms of models, but particularly the smallest number of potential casualties and potential pins. I would much rather expose myself to 1 10-man rifleman squad than 3 small teams with rifles. Yeah. Just because that 1 10-man squad, I can go down and I can respond to that, or I can stay in cover and I'll be fine, and it's only 1 pin.
Or you take 1 pin. Yeah.
You're going to take 1 pin. But you're supposed to have 3 squads, it's up to 3 pins. It's too risky. And so what I do on the defense is I try to, again, this is like an optimal case scenario, is I try to position my defending squad with line of sight and line of fire onto the objective within 12 inches within 1 turn of movement. So if you're in rough ground, it's 6 or 12 if you're in open ground to get to it. And I will try to have them be more or less as invisible as possible until the enemy is on the objective. In one of the Skulls tournaments, for each mission had a backfield objective. And that in case my opponent achieved a serious breakthrough, I had 1 50-point flamer team in ambush from the start of turn 2 behind a building next to all of my objectives. No spotter can see them, no sniper could see them. And so part of that was luck. Right, that my opponent didn't have. There was a blind spot where I could put that unit. They just sat there all game. That was the best 50 points I'd ever spent, because every game I had an opponent going, "Oh, I could just. Oh, but there's a flamethrower there.
Yeah.
Oh, I could, but there's just a flamethrower." Every turn of every game, somebody was like, "I'll just get my transport. Oh, there's a flamethrower there." Every game, and that was worth its weight in gold. And so that's what I've tried to do for every kind of defense. Is most of the time, because I play aggressive. Offense is, for most of the board, offense is my form of defense. Not give them room to attack. It goes, no, we're doing this on my clock, and I'm attacking, so you're on the defense. If you don't want to submit to that role, that's fine. I'll keep shooting you until you realize that's what's happening. But with the defense, it's again that same thing of just having ideally a squad that's more or less invisible until my opponent is on the objective, and then I will just shoot you to shit.
Yeah, I think for me personally, because I run, it's one of the strengths of my balanced list building, right? Is that defensively my armies are generally very strong because I have multiple things that I can call to defend with. But I also, as a player and representing what's on the board and things, I do whatever I can to increase my defensive advantages. So like what you're saying, I hide units out of line of sight. So sitting on backfield or even midfield objectives, but you simply go, I'm going to make it, unless you maneuver, I'm going to make it really hard for you to see my guys. And then I'll react to the fact that you've moved, but you're not moving in a direct line to the objective. You're having to skirt around it. That wastes time for your infantry or for your tanks and stuff. I'll actually consider sometimes moving back towards my own line to open up that weapon range so that you're not getting as accurate shots. And then I'll push back forward again on the next turn and get the drop on you. I'll put more cover, like dropping smoke or leveraging the line of sight, blocking stuff to get in the way. Sacrificing tanks by putting things in the way that then create wrecks. Not the most ideal way to do it, but if you have to do it and it keeps the infantry away, it actually meets the objective. Most defensive missions where you need to hold back, you're not sacrificing kill points at the same time. So it's not as much of a problem. You lose the attack capability, but you create a block. It's great on roads. Don't forget how powerful your leader units can actually be in a defensive formation. Snap 2 is insanely good when playing defensively, and the morale boost that you get is insanely good when playing defensively. Don't hesitate just to go, I've taken some damage. Well, just go down. It's no big deal.
Especially there's a kind of synergistic effect there where if you forced your opponent to maneuver out to take a shot at a squad, and then you snap to return fire with 2 squads against somebody who's out in the open, maneuvered, they can't go down. It's a really good way to just go, thanks for serving a unit on a silver platter.
And it's a militaristic tactic that goes back way. It's called defeat in detail, right? So you have your balanced line spread across, and then essentially right before conflict, or if someone's drawn out of position, you reorganize part of your line to strengthen up a point, and you hit what's coming forward, and you hit it harder than it's expecting to be hit. Now, the trick is that once you've done that, you have to follow through on the second part of defeat in detail, which is either push forward with that to expose the gap, or reset your line and push those things back. It's a lot easier to do that with Snap 2. It's a lot easier.
I think defeat in detail is more commonly known as divide and conquer, but the principle's the same.
And so those are all quite critical key things. I would also say everyone writes off MMGs as horrible. MMGs are actually fantastic in defense. Hide them behind something and train them on that objective, and let your enemy walk into 5 point blank MG shots. Go for it. What about you guys?
You basically said everything. Anytime I want to do something, I've already thought about it with my partisan list. Have fun moving 20 guys off an objective. Even better if there's cover there. Even better if there's cover there or something.
I'm going to have all of the time in the world.
But it's for me, it's whole, you were saying before, oh, it's you're kind of wasting an order, him sitting there.
Yeah.
But for example, the flamethrower there, like, absolutely throws people. For a
Yeah,
loop.
yeah.
Like,
And I had a second flamethrower.
But I think that's perfect because you're thinking at the list building stage of what would be the deterrent, for charging that objective.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think your point's not invalid because
Yeah.
having a squad of like my inexperienced Soviet riflemen, for example, having a squad of them sit at the backfield not doing anything is probably not the best for them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, my point was more to actually be utilizing that unit and then committing them to the determined turns left that they'd be defending that objective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas, my default has been, all right, yeah, this guy's going to be the guy with a couple LMGs. He's going to be the one who holds the objective, and he'll be in the perfect line of fire to attack things as they're coming in.
But then the
But
attack may never come back, right?
Yeah.
Well, more so, he's just going to be hit by 2, 3, 4 units.
Yeah. Because he's
And-
already
and-
exposed.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people try and do that. Best defense is a good offense.
Yeah.
I think that seems to be a prevailing tactic for a lot of people.
And it is not just a double-edged sword. It is like a 12-bladed
Oh, yeah.
mace.
Yeah,
It is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
But
falls apart very quickly if someone just hits that Achilles heel and it's just like, I thought I was in control of what's happening.
Yeah.
yeah, and for me, it's definitely you're sitting there. Your one role is to not lose this objective, and it is you're shooting at him, he's going down. Like
Yeah.
You come
Equally
and
valid.
get to it. Like
And then of course the one thing that I always forget is you can leave that unit down and you lose D3 pins at the end of the next turn.
yeah.
You actually lose the D3 pins immediately.
Oh, do you really? I
Yes.
thought it was at the end of the next turn.
Now I think in first edition it was end of turn, but
right.
but you now lose them in version 2 immediately, which is Goshen doesn't believe me, but which is great because you get that immediate drop. The trick is you essentially by that point when it's done, you're still committing that unit to being down. So if they're defensive, it's fine, but do not do it with a unit that you want to attack with.
Yeah.
And like I said, the one goal of that unit is to sit there and hold, and not near the objective, on the objective.
Yes.
And people are like, mortars and stuff, but if my mortar is firing at something in my backline, probably good. Sorry, if the enemy mortar is firing at something in my backline, not my own mortar.
That's a shame.
It's like it probably means it's not focusing on something that is going for their objective. Like it's a double-edged sword. Everything is. It's all a trade-off. But
Yeah, it is.
So what was the ruling for down?
Dan's right. That's
Oh,
right.
right.
funny that. It's
It's just because we used it at the last tournament, and my opponent used it, and he checked, and he said at the end of next turn, and he checked.
Yeah, you're like,
He,
sure.
he had the rule book, and he was like, okay, that's the worst interpretation for you, so I have no reason to suspect that you're lying, or and you had the rule book in front of you, so
I'll take your word for it. Yeah.
why would I not?
yeah. Yeah,
Sorry, mortar
but
firing.
no,
in the back.
like it's like with a flamethrower though. Like I'm gonna try and hide it out of line of sight, but if their spotter can see my back line, oh well, like there's nothing I could do anyway. Let's just cop it and see what happens. That's kind of my thought on it anyway.
But then you could just channel your inner, like Ferdinand Foch, and just attack. Because if you can see your unit standing still, you might as well just move. And if you're going to move, you might as well move towards your enemy. When in doubt, attack.
I don't know how to answer that.
Tyler's like, we play so different.
Everything has a purpose. Everything has a place.
It's all right. I understand.
Everything I do for fun, and that's kind of at the end of the day how I play.
Won't be needing this.
And like particularly like the German list that I made with the small squads and stuff, there wasn't anything for the back line. It was offense, good defense. Whereas this partisan list, I'm like, how funny would it be if someone had to try and remove 20 guys from an objective? That's just one roll.
I'm going to bring so much indirect. I'm all sit there.
The funny thing is,
Smoke
if
man.
you make some shirkers, you don't even need so much indirect. You need a light mortar.
Yes, but 1 is none, 2 is 1, and 3 is enough.
Okay. As a Soviet player, I'm not entirely convinced there, but I get your point.
Yeah.
And really the last thing. So again, most people will be familiar with the concept of defense because generally when you fight a really good player, you find that's the only way that you can play. Is because you're outmaneuvered and you're having to figure out what defensive looks like. So
you're on their clock.
You're on their clock, yeah. So ultimately, and a lot of the things that we've talked about, we've tried to not make it abstract. We've tried to pull specifics in that we can talk about how to use units on the field. But ultimately, as always, you're going to need to play. You're going to need to actually get to grips with it.
Absolutely.
But there's one piece that I think is extremely important for us to chat about very, very quickly, which is when do you actually write off a squad as useless?
Never.
I'm actually with Tyler in this one.
Never.
Ever. What do you think, Jacob?
Never?
Don't look at
that
me,
wasn't
man.
very convincing.
Have your own opinion.
No, but like, when you've got to have a think, like, how many pins are on this unit? How many wounds are on it? What is its effective ability to, take an objective, kill something, or whatever else? There's going to be points where it's useless.
So this goes back to where I'm coming from with my never is that list of roles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So seek and destroy, hold ground.
Yeah.
Right at the bottom is be an order dice.
Yep.
and just above that is be a unit to count for an objective.
Yeah.
Because some objectives are like controlled by number of models, and some are scored by number of units.
Yep.
Yeah.
One guy, the last guy who's probably not even the NCO in a squad,
Yeah.
just one guy with the rifleman, he's still a unit. He's still an order dice.
Yep.
He can still count as a unit for an objective.
I mean, it
That's
didn't
true.
matter because we had so thoroughly wiped them off the board. Sorry, Jackson. Sorry, Brad. But like, I had one guy who survived the Nebelwerfer strike. His entire squad died
Yeah.
from the strike. It's just him, the sergeant, and he ran with the
I think he
Louis
spent
and the
3
medic.
turns running across the board.
He was
to
with
an
the
objective.
Louis and the medic, and they
Yeah.
all just ran towards the objective. That's 3
Yeah.
order dice that are
Yeah.
currently sitting on that
Yeah.
objective.
No, that's cool.
So
Or in the bag.
yeah.
or in the bag.
Yeah.
And that is my biggest thing.
Yeah.
Like, because for 2 turns, he just hung out behind something. Because I was
Yeah.
like, he doesn't need to move.
And there was still a sniper in play, I will add.
Yeah. Like, worst comes to worst, you might not need the dice,
Yeah.
but you might need the breathing room that a dice
Yeah.
offers.
And it's a small team.
Spot
Love that.
Yep.
No, but obviously one unit can still cause 1 pin on
Yeah,
any
for
other
sure.
unit.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Almost any other unit.
Yeah.
But and you've pretty much all captured it. I didn't know how you were going to interpret that question and whether you would simply go, oh, well, when there's like 3 guys, it's sort of not really worth it anymore and this and that. And, they get wiped out pretty simply. But all the points that you've raised are the points that I would challenge to say it's actually never useless. You just have to use it differently.
Even in the Dueling Aces game, the second one Volks Grenadier almost
Won them the game.
almost won them the game.
Yeah, right.
Like, everyone, they were all dead.
Fair was
except for him.
upgrade roll, 3 pins by himself with an assault rifle, deep behind enemy lines.
Yeah.
1 order test wins the game.
Yep.
And never useless.
Never when you need it, though.
Oh, man.
That's a different podcast.
If I had to describe that tournament, it'd be like, it was the best of dice, it was the worst of dice. Like, there was some hot dice. I think I got hit by mortars on 6 twice.
I
one
witnessed one of the rolls, 7 shots against, I think it was like 3 men left, point blank on 2s with some guys that had essentially, they'd moved close, and then it was the flip of the turn, and the bigger squad got to shoot first. It was like 6 ones out of 7 dice.
Yeah.
Oh.
That
It
was
was
my roll.
combat roll.
Yeah.
We drew, rolled again. He still won.
But so it and I appreciate that we sort of wrap this last piece up overall, but the only thing that we could really do next to explain how infantry works is actually play more games and put them on the channel so people can see how we play with infantry, because at the end of the day it will come down to just practice and knowing what your infantry can and can't do.
It sounds like a call to action, Dan.
Well, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to that,
But challenge Dan to a game of bolt action.
Yeah. You've
Yeah.
been challenging me for 2 weeks, 2 months now. Challenge someone else.
I have to work around my kids and everything else, but that's fine. But yeah, it's the kind of thing which you will learn with time as you play more, and the more you play.
We talked about this, Dan. Intentional practice.
Intentional practice. That's exactly right. And but hopefully that's given people an understanding or a better understanding of some of the what I would see as core basics to understand with infantry and the reasons why you do certain things, and also maybe some things you weren't when the talks came out on how we arm our weapons differently. Maybe something that was there that was fresh for you guys that you didn't know about. Maybe you want to go totalitarian like Tyler there and just go, no, I don't care. You get an assault rifle. No, I don't care. You're getting a submachine gun. I want to give you something else, but we've only got rifles. You
bring your own weapon.
You're a partisan? Pistol.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, it's so crazy because I started with Germans and I was like, fuck, I can give everyone assault rifles. Hell yeah, let's do that. I looked at US once for, I don't know what it was, some event. And I started going through the selector and I'm like, ew, what do you mean only 3 SMGs? My mind was already made up from the first army I set.
This is how you play bolt action.
Yeah, so it'd be really interesting to see people's different points of view, like comment on the video, comment on our Facebook, do all that fun stuff, telling us what armor you played with and whether you think it's affected the way you play the game. Because that's the reason I play the way I do. Because I'm like, fun toys, specialize, let's go.
Yep.
Unless I'm playing US. But that's because it's bullshit.
But that's what you're exactly right. For example, if I said, here, Tyler, here's my Bulgarian army, go play with that, and you look at the squads and you go, wait. There's 10 dudes in the squad. You got 4 squads. Okay, I'm on board with that. But you've only got 1 light machine gun in a squad, 1 Panzerfaust in a squad, and 1 submachine gun in a squad.
Yeah. No.
I'm like, look how many fingers I'm holding up, Dan. It's only 3.
And they're all for different reasons.
Why is there an LMG and an SMG in the same squad?
Now you sound like Jackson.
Yeah.
Yes.
But again, it's different horses for courses, right? So, but I can see how with those weapon types, if you're used to that play style, to suddenly get thrown a list that doesn't do that, you go, no.
Yeah, and it'd be really interesting to see how someone who started as a Soviet player then handles veterans. Like, oh my God, all my Christmases at once. Because you suddenly have these squads that aren't going to run.
So the problem that I had when I made that conversion was I got a little cocky, and I got many Soviet veterans killed.
I'm waiting until I just run my full inexperienced German list.
I cannot wait for this full swing list.
And yes, I'm getting a Goliath team.
So good. I can give you one. I got one.
So you're working on your you will be working on your swing list. You'll be working on your last defenders list. I got my partisans. You'll still be on Bulgarians?
If I haven't started something else.
By the end of 2022.
By the end of 2022.
But we got mid-war coming up.
Got to do my APB.
Yeah.
I got to move. I got to move to Stalingrad or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the partisans work mid-war. I'm hoping so anyway.
Yeah, they will.
Because that'll give me a bit
Certain
of kick.
countries would.
I mean, you'd have French partisans from 1940.
And Polish.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, mine are technically the IRA. But have I talked about that on here?
Yeah.
I think I have. Yeah. Yeah, no? All right. Don't worry about it. Anyway, yeah. But snap to action, my people.
Yes.
My people.
Perfect.
So I really just want to let you
know. I just want to hear.
Thank you very much.
Tyler's like, are you going to rescue me? And we're all going, nope.
Thank you very much for listening today, ladies and gentlemen. If you like what you hear, just subscribe to us on whatever channel you're listening to. Give us them 5 stars or 10 thumbs or whatever the rating system is. Give us the most. That helps us with exposure. If you're listening on the YouTube, subscribe to our channel. We'll have lots of cool content coming. The APB, there's actually an awesome thing that we're doing with that very, very soon. If you don't know what APB stands for, it stands for Australian Parachute Battalion.
Look at you
Brigade?
guys.
Battalion.
Come on.
So close. Yeah, I didn't know they existed either. They do. We're going to have a
Neither
really
did
cool
I.
video
Neither
about
did
it.
Apparently.
No one. No one knew about it.
That's why you did the research piece, right?
Yeah, so some really cool, obscure stuff. Yep, like our Facebook page, Western Tabletop
And
and HMG. And yeah, anything you guys want to put in the comments, challenge Dan, challenge Gorchin, challenge Jacob.
Don't
challenge me.
Tyler.
I got a backlog to get through. But
it's
yeah.
an easy win against Tyler.
Oh. Yeah, and specifically, we obviously still have a stack of content that we've got on our list of things to do. But if there's stuff that you want to hear us talk about, if you for some reason like the way that we break things down more than just nice content, and you go, actually, I really want to hear them talk about
Triangles.
this part of
Tank Wars.
this part of bolt action and what you guys do in Perth and how you guys do things. We're more than willing to take on requests for content and for that sort of stuff. We all do this because we enjoy the hobby and we just want to. It's not really giving it something back, because I've got to be brutally honest. We get a lot of gratification out of doing this, but it's we want to talk about stuff that remains relatively relevant with what we do.
Yeah.
Well, I've been Tyler.
I'm Jacob, as
I'm Gorchin.
always.
And I'm Dan.
Thanks
And
for checking us out, guys.
Thank you for checking us out. If you see Gorchin in the street, call him a Primarch. Thanks, bye.